Hey, good morning. Welcome back to RHD Godzilla. So today we're going to do a few things on the RX-7. First thing is we're going to take the starter, get it put in, get the wiring ran to it, get it terminated. That way the starter is completely done. Second thing we're going to do is finish up the wiring on the alternator. Should be pretty simple, straightforward. It's just a matter of terminating two wires. One wire really, plugging into the relay and then plugging the other side in or connecting the other side to the starter. Let's get started on it and get this thing finished up. Okay, so first up is the starter, getting it put in. What you'll need is an extension, short extension, ratchet. I will probably end up using my electric ratchet as well, and a 14 millimeter bolt. Unfortunately, the extra bolt I had to buy, because I don't have no clue what happened to my original starter bolt, is a 15. So I would need a 15. You shouldn't need a 15. I believe they were both 14s. So disregard the 15 unless you had to do what I did and went and bought another bolt. But so there's a little spade connector underneath there that connects to this. And then for my setup, and I can't remember how the factory setup is, but for mine, I have a wire coming from the fuse panel. Excuse me. I have a wire coming from the main fuse box right here that goes back to the starter, and then I also have a wire going from the alternator down to the starter as well. So that's where, and then of course from the battery to the starter. So everything kind of joins right here. So I'll need to terminate the one that goes from the front box to here, and then of course, I don't know if you remember or watched that video, but I accidentally messed up the one that comes from the actual battery when I was using the lift. So I'll have to fix that. That shouldn't take too long, no. So, but first off, let's get this put in. Also, the starter torque specs are 28 foot-pounds. There's a variance in there, but I'm going to do it at 28 foot-pounds. And then the terminal bolt, this one right here, is 8 foot-pounds. So these bolts right here and this one right here is actually 24 to 33. I'm doing it at 28. And this one here is 8 foot-pounds. Is what it calls for, so that's what I'm going to do it at. Let's climb underneath the car and get this thing put in. Okay, so here's the starter, where the starter goes. Of course, the main part of the starter goes in here. Then you got one bolt here. This top one is the longer bolt that has the nut on it. So it goes in. You have to get up into there and get the onto that nut to tighten everything down. But it's not too bad to do compared to some cars. So that's the first step. All right, so also the bolt that I went and bought that I can't find for the starter isn't the right size. I guess the thread pitch is wrong. The information I got off of the RX-7 forum wasn't correct. Either that or maybe there was a wrong bolt in that spot where I got it at. But either way, it doesn't work, so I'm gonna have to go run to the store and get one later on. I can still put everything else in and then just come back and put that in. Since we're not starting the car right now. So but yeah, I'll go run to the store and get that here in just a little bit. Okay, so the starter only goes in one way. You're gonna want the gear to be facing up towards the flywheel, and it just slides right in. Then you take your bolt here and slide it in. Then you take the nut, and fight this thing for a minute. Hold it in with one hand and then use the other to start the nut on there. Okay, so you can get your wrench on the back side for the nut is, and then work your ratchet with your extension up above. And go ahead and tighten it down. I'll get the torque wrench on it here in just a few minutes. So pretty easy to get to. So now we just got a torque. Alright, so you get your torque wrench on there. Let me back this up just a little bit so that way you're not just seeing my hand. Let's see. We're at 23. So that one's torqued down properly. So now I'll just have to get the one for this bolt right here, and then we'll run all the wiring to here once it's ready to go. So alright, so one thing I screwed up on is this ground wire right here is actually supposed to go to that top bolt. So I could probably do it with this bottom one and be just fine, but might as well loosen that up real quick and put that on there. So just a reminder, don't forget to put that ground on there. It's very important it grounds to one of these two bolts. So yeah, so don't forget to do that like I did. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get the main battery cable terminated. I'm gonna go ahead and cut this red covering off and replace it with a nicer, cleaner black one. All right. So now this should fit just about perfectly. If not, I have a little bit more room I can use. But first I want to go ahead and preload it with this and the heat shrink. Go ahead and slide it on. Put the second piece on. Hopefully I can get up in there with the heat gun at some point from the top and shrink that first one, but I went ahead and slid it on. Even though it'd probably fit afterwards, I always like to just get in the habit of putting it on ahead of time. Only because once that connector's on, sometimes the heat shrink doesn't fit over the connector, so I always put it on first. It's the right thing to do. All right, so now we're gonna take our Jacari cutter here. Like that. All right, I didn't realize I wasn't recording, but I got the terminal on, so I'm gonna go ahead and bring this down and heat shrink it. Okay. All right, so now it's time to run the wire from the fuse box that's up in the front. Run it along this frame rail and then down into here and to the starter. So let's see what we can do with that. So I might be able to run it right down through along these oil lines here and kind of zip tie it along there. So I'm gonna do that and then come right back. All right, so far we've gotten this terminated. Just gotta heat shrink this real quick, and then I will throw another piece of heat shrink over the actual terminal itself.
So now we'll check out my timer's ready to come off. Put that just like that.
Alright, so now we can bolt this onto the starter, and then we'll just have one more to do, which will be from the alternator down to the starter. So let's alright, so now we're going to go ahead and hook up the wire that goes from the alternator down to the starter. It's pretty simple, 2 wires. One I already have terminated, the other wire I need to add the connector onto the end of it. It goes to the relay that sits right down here. So this wire here goes to the relay, and this wire right here will go all the way down to the starter. So we'll go ahead and get the stuff out to get this hooked up to the relay, and then for the most part the wiring will be done. I just need to kind of clean up the starter area a little bit and see if I can get a little bit more slack in that main wire that goes to the battery. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is loosen up this relay just so I can get to the terminal I need to get to. I don't need to take it all the way off, just loosen it. Rotate it. Probably easier to rotate it this way. All right. So, I'm trying to do this one-handed here. So the terminal it needs to go on is that one right there. I just want to test fit this, make sure I got the right size, which I'm 99% sure I did. Yeah, I did. So what I'll do is I will take this little blue plastic off of here and add heat shrink to it. So let me go grab. All right, so my idea is to try and get all these wires into here and have them go out like this. So what I need to do is I'll do that one last, and then I can zip tie everything together. Okay, now these get this gets torqued down to 8 foot-pounds. Yeah, let's see if I got the right one on there. Nope. All right. All right, 8 foot-pounds. All right, so that is torqued to 8 foot-pounds. I'm gonna zip tie these. I'm gonna have to loosen up that big thick one that goes to the battery. So I'm gonna have to see. I think I have a little bit of slack inside the car that I can get to it. Let's see, so let's get this one out of the way. And then before I forget, we'll go ahead and hook up this this little spade connector here. Let's get around it, hook that up. So now let's snip these. All right, the starter is in and done. Like I said, I do need to try and find a little bit of slack for this battery cable here. So I'll have to see where it goes through the firewall, and then I can loosen that up a little bit just so it's not so tight. But it's done. It's everything's hooked up. Oh, I gotta hook this up. Actually, I can probably hook it up with this one when I put this bolt in. So we'll do that when I put that bolt in. So, all right, well, I'm gonna get this stuff cleaned up and we'll start working on the next project.